Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Fred here, great to see you again. So as many of you know, in the last video I was talking about how I was embracing being the wheelchair guy. I even changed my name to Fredo Smith, the wheelchair guy, and about how much I was loving it, being part of my new identity. I'm loving being the wheelchair guy. And I just wanted to say, however, that's not always the case, is it? Well, let me explain. By the way, the story does have a happy ending, so bear with me. So last weekend I had the exact opposite experience where I actually hated being the wheelchair guy. And a lot of people think when they see people in a wheelchair that their legs don't work, but in reality that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's the secondary complications that are the biggest ball ache really, and that can include nerve pain, leg spasms, physical pain, catheters, bowel program, impaired sexual function, at the mercy of the weather, reduced independence. I mean, I could go on, but there's so many other things that go along with, just sitting in the wheelchair all day. So sometimes these things can be under control, but sometimes these things control you. It's really unfortunate. This weekend I was at the mercy of the weather. It was really rainy. I was stressed out about a few things. I was quite sad. I'm missing Lou still, and there was just a few things that were getting me down. I haven't been able to get outside and exercise on my bike, which is really great for my physical and mental health. And the worst thing for my leg spasms is being idle, like when I'm exercising and moving about. They seem to relax a lot. But when I get stressed out, it seems to create this feedback loop, and my legs were like contracting and spasming up, and now I was getting stressed. So there's kind of this vicious circle of my leg spasms just ramping up, from not being able to get out and exercise, and just generally I was having a bit of a shit weekend. A few friends invited me places, but I knew that with my discomfort and spasms, I wouldn't really want to stay that long. So I thought, it'd be the best thing just to stay indoors. And I was just sat alone on a rainy Saturday night,
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And so I was absolutely hating being the wheelchair guy. I was hating the secondary complications, I was hating the leg spasms, I was hating that I couldn't go out. And it wasn't very congruent with the message I was portraying in my last video of being, hey, I love being the wheelchair guy. Isn't it just great that I bob around in the wheelchair? But I'm loving being the wheelchair guy. So yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a reality check about, it's not always cool being the wheelchair guy. But alas, Sunday morning pops its head up and the sun is shining for the first time, it feels like in ages. And, my leg spasms are still really tight, and, my mood is still a bit low, but I was like, oh, well, at least the sun's shining. And I'm going to go outside, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D, and I'm going to go ride my bike, which of course the exercise is going to relax my spasms and everything will be fine. So I go out to my bike, I connect it up, and it kind of seems a bit sluggish. The screen kept turning on and off, and I didn't know what was wrong with it, and then all of a sudden it just died, accompanied with the smell of like burning electrics, and I was like, oh god, it's not like something mechanical snap, like a gear cable or the chain come off. It seemed like much more sinister. It was like, oh fuck, like the motor's broken or something. I don't know. It was horrible. I was just like, oh well, I can't ride my bike now. The only saving grace, I think, was that it happened in the driveway, because if it had happened literally anywhere else, it would have been very much more inconvenient than mildly inconvenient in the driveway. But it didn't really help my mood, I was like, oh, I really wanted to get out on my bike, and now it's broken, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. So I'm trying to stay calm and like not overreact so much. I was using my bike pedaler thing to like pedal my legs to try and calm down my spasms, but my legs aren't happy. They're not having none of it. They're like, grrr. And Benji saw that for the first time, and he was like, whoa man, I've never seen your spasms like that before. I've heard you complain about spasms, but I didn't know they were that bad. However, this story does have a happy ending. I managed to have a really great chat with Benji. He's a really good listener. He let me get things off my chest that I was worried about, and stood in my standing frame, which is insanely beneficial, and I just calmed down a lot. And it's quite nice having Benji here. He even helped me stretch my legs, which was massively beneficial. That's something that Lou used to help me with, and he was more than happy to do that. And then he encouraged me to go out to lunch with my friends. It was the same lunch that I went to last week with the little girl when I was playing, like, whatever you call that, patty cake or whatever. And it was nice, actually. Like, my spasms had calmed down enough to, enjoy it. And the sun was shining. We were having lunch on the terrace. And it was really nice. And that cheered me up quite a lot, actually. And the bike, well, I went and had a look at it yesterday with a bit more of a clear head. And I was like, okay, well, let's have a look at what could be wrong with it. And it turns out that the problem was the battery. The battery had kind of like imploded a little bit. That's where the smell of burning had come from. Luckily, I had a spare battery, very fortunate, and I connected the new battery up, and hey presto, the bike started working again. The sun was shining, and I had the best ride I've had in ages. Every crank of the wheel, I was like full of gratitude. Every ray of sunshine on my face, I was like full of joy. I feel so present, like really like savoring the moment, like thinking I thought my bike was broken, man. I thought I'd never be able to ride it again, and I was getting down, and then all of a sudden it's working, and I just wanted to, the sun on my face after all the rain we've had this week and next week as well. So just taking this moment to be like, yeah, man, it's a good moment. I'm really zen right now, very present. Like every crank of the wheels, I'm just like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm cycling again. It's actually almost worth it braking for me to feel this elated that it's working again. Nice one. Thanks, bike. Yay! Woohoo! Luna had an enormous stick that she was carrying. I like big sticks and I cannot lie. You other doggies can't deny. What am I supposed to do with that, mate? Look at the size of it. It was just great. I was so present. I was so grateful for the experience of riding my bike. Hey, see the size of that stick, yeah? Well, she's running along with it for ages. She's carried it from one end to the other. And there's people pushing their kids, like in little buggies. And that stick is like head height. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Désolé, pardon. Mate, look at her. She's mental. Obsessed with that stick. Honestly, and like she's coming down this little path which is this wide, and the stick is as wide as the path. She's clotheslining kneecaps. What are you up to, you mad badger? Honestly. And it's wonderful how these things can be accentuated by sometimes when you think that they're going to be taken away from you, and then you have a wonderful experience. I even stopped by the river to do some meditation in the sun, and the river was flowing like extra heavy because of all the rain, and it was just wonderful. I was having a great time. I was very, very present, and it was really cool. So this experience has taught me that these things are inevitable. Sometimes a piece of machinery that you rely on, will break down on you. People will sometimes let us down, and life will provide obstacles for us to overcome, And the expectation that it should be another way is actually a great source of suffering. Suffering that actually makes it harder to solve the problems that we're faced with. And ironically, this is a problem that we can solve by expecting there to be more problems that arise in our life. If I can paraphrase Sam Harris, he says something like, imagine life was a video game, and did you really expect there would be this incredibly boring level of this game that we call existence where there were no problems to solve, And it's a really wonderful analogy, I think. Problems continually arise. So I think you've just got to learn to expect them, and I guess almost kind of enjoy them if you can. Of course, this can be harder in practice than in theory. Often these tough times that we face can seem quite funny with hindsight. Someone once told me tragedy plus time equals comedy. And obviously the bigger the tragedy, the bigger the time has to pass. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I sometimes reflect back on things like remember that time my bike broke and it turned out to just be the battery. Or remember that time I got deported from New Zealand and thought it was an enormous tragedy and the end of a wonderful lifestyle that I was leaving. And then it turned out to open up lots of amazing opportunities for me that led me here. Or Maybe, remember that time I fell off a cliff and broke my back? But now I have the opportunity to embrace it and deliver this message to you fine people. So I think, you got to try and look at the bright side of life. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that life can be really hard sometimes, regardless of disability. I have some able-bodied friends right now that are going through some incredibly tough times. Yeah, sometimes it is really tough being the wheelchair guy, but sometimes it's really tough being human. Sometimes I think I over-romanticize the idea of being able-bodied again, and like, oh, if only I was able-bodied, like all my problems would disappear. But they wouldn't, of course. That's what this, the rich tapestry of life just provides you all these opportunities, and you can't even experience happiness without experiencing sadness. You have to go through this sort of up and down wave of ups and downs to experience all the spectrum of emotions that life can give you. So I guess if you have the time and free attention to be watching this video, then that is a privilege that you shouldn't take for granted. There are people that are suffering from the acute stages of bereavement, political oppression, maybe caught in a war zone, and there's probably about 1 billion people on this planet that would consider their prayers answered if they could trade places with you right now. So yes, in conclusion, I am still happy to be the wheelchair guy. Despite the leg spasms and the secondary complications, it's all part of being alive, man. It's all part of the journey. So, hope this video has given you some perspective and a little catch up on what's happened to me this week. And as always, love yourselves and each other. See you in the next one. Peace. All right, mate, what do you want? You want this, don't you? Oh, right, yeah, this is the last time though.